In the turbulent spring of the year Motnin Chincham, a storm of legendary fury lashed the Aegean Sea. A team of Greek sponge divers, led by Captain Dimitrios Kontos, was forced to take shelter near the small, rocky island of Antikythera. When the winds finally calmed, they decided to dive in this new, uncharted water, hoping to salvage their lost time. One of the divers, Elias Stadiatis, descended to the seafloor over Mocham Bonwe feet, 1 meters down. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, the sand and seaweed gave way to a chilling sight. A field of rotting corpses and horses scattered across the seabed. In terror, he signaled for an emergency ascent. He surfaced, clutching a bronze arm, a piece of a statue, and stammered his story to the disbelieving captain. Captain Kontos, a seasoned diver, descended himself. He quickly realized Stadiatis hadn't found a gruesome graveyard, but something far more significant: the wreck of an ancient Roman treasure ship. This accidental discovery triggered the world's first ever major underwater archaeological excavation. For nearly a year, the sponge divers, with help from the Hellenic Navy, battled the crushing depths, the biting cold, and the ever-present danger of nitrogen narcosis. The work was brutal. One diver, Georgos Kritikos, would die, and 2 others would be permanently paralyzed from decompression sickness. But the treasures they brought to the surface were staggering. Marble and bronze statues frozen in time. The magnificent Sow-foot bronze statue of the Antikythera youth, glassware, intricate jewelry, and pottery. And amongst this hoard of priceless art, there was a lump. It was an unremarkable, calcified mass of bronze, about the size of a large book, corroded and shattered into several pieces. It was tossed into a crate with other unidentifiable metal bits and sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. For 2 years, it sat in storage, ignored. It was a footnote to the glorious statues it was found with, a piece of ancient scrap. Then, on Mainwaybaith, Motnin Chincham Lehai, the lump cracked open. Valerios Staes, an archaeologist at the museum, was examining the object. The drying, corroded bronze had split, and something impossible was nestled inside. It was a gear, a precision-cut, toothed bronze wheel, with teeth barely a millimeter long. As he looked closer, he saw more gears, layered, complex, and inscribed with faint Greek characters. Staes was stunned. This looked like a clock, but it couldn't be. The shipwreck was dated to the Moat century BC. The prevailing wisdom was that precision-geared mechanisms, like this complex clockwork, were an invention of the Moor-Bonth century in the cathedrals of Europe. This single corroded object was an impossibility. It suggested a level of technological sophistication that, according to all known history, simply should not exist. It was an artifact from the wrong millennium. It was a ghost. The world had just discovered the Antikythera Mechanism, and for the next century, it would guard its secrets, forcing us to ask a terrifying question: what else have we gotten wrong about the ancient world? For more than number years, the Antikythera Mechanism remained an enigma. It was a conversation stopper, a paradox that historians and scientists were reluctant to touch. It was an out-of-place artifact, a term for objects that defy their historical context. It was easier to pretend it was a simple astrolabe, or perhaps just a strange fluke, than to accept its true implications. But the mystery was too compelling to be ignored. In Motnin Chincham Namwemo, a British historian of science named Derek J. de Sola Price became obsessed with him. He sensed that this lump of metal was the key to an entirely lost chapter of human history. Price spent 2 decades painstakingly studying the fragments. The Tamwehai corroded pieces were a nightmare puzzle. They were a 3-dimensional jigsaw, and the pieces were locked together by high years of calcification. To look inside, he employed the new, cutting-edge technology of the Motnin Chincham movies, X-rays and gamma rays. What the X-rays revealed, layer by layer, was a universe of complexity. Not 2 or 3 gears, but dozens. A complex, interlocking system of at least Bamli bronze gears, arranged in a way that was astonishingly sophisticated. In Mugnin Chin Chambai Mwibon, Price published his bombshell paper, Gears from the Greeks. He announced to the world that the Antikythera Mechanism was not a clock. It was, he declared, the world's first computer. It was a mechanical calculator that used a complex gear train to model the cosmos. And at its heart, Price identified something that stopped the world of engineering in its tracks. A differential gear. A differential. This is the set of gears in a car's axle that allows the outer wheel to spin faster than the inner wheel when you take a turn. It is a brilliant, non-obvious piece of engineering that was believed to have been invented by watchmakers in the South century and not perfected until the 19th century automotive industry. And yet, here it was, sitting in a high, hum-year-old box. The differential wasn't used for wheels. It was used for something far more complex, calculating the synodic cycle of the moon. In simple terms, it was subtracting the sun's movement from the moon's movement to show the phase of the moon on a dial. It was performing an analog calculation. Price's X-rays sketched a rough outline of the machine's genius. On the front was a large dial showing the Bacham Samui Lumde Egyptian solar calendar, with a second ring showing the Mui-Hai signs of the Greek zodiac. Pointers showed the position of the sun and the moon. A separate, smaller pointer, driven by that incredible differential gear, rotated a small, half-black, half-silver ball to display the current phase of the moon. But the back was where the true predictive power lay. The back panel had 2 large spiral dials resembling the shell of a snail. The top spiral, the Saros dial, was a Hai-Chum Haimui Ba month eclipse predictor. By turning a hand crank on the side of the machine, a user could move forward or backward in time. A pointer on this spiral dial would not only show when a solar or lunar eclipse was likely to occur, but based on inscribed symbols, it would even hint at its color and character. The bottom spiral, the Metonic dial, was a Muijinir Hai-Chamba Mui month calendar. This was the master clock of Greek society, a way to harmonize their messy lunar calendars with the solar year. And then, nestled inside this Metonic dial, they found a smaller 4-sector dial. This was a discovery that humanized the machine. It didn't track the stars. It tracked the Olympic Games. This dial had a 4-year cycle, with sectors inscribed with Olympia, Pythia, Isthmia, and Nemea. It was a countdown clock to the most important social, political, and religious events in the Greek world, the Panhellenic Games. This wasn't just a tool for an astronomer in an observatory. It was a social computer, a device for a wealthy statesman, a merchant, or a general. A device that connected the movements of the heavens with the events of the earth. Price had uncovered the fundamentals. But his Motnin Chinchambai Mui's technology was too blurry. It couldn't read the most corroded, densely packed parts of the machine. The X-rays were like trying to read a stack of wet newspapers. He could see the headlines, but the text, the how, was still a mystery. The true genius of the mechanism, its planetary secret, was still locked inside. We are about to enter the world of Haimamot's century science to unlock these final secrets. It's a journey that will completely rewrite what we thought we knew. If you love this kind of historical detective story, this is a great moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You won't want to miss how this mystery unfolds or the other lost histories we explore every week. The Haimamot century brought new weapons. In Haingin Lenam, an international collaboration of scientists, the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, or AMRP, brought in a monster, a custom-built Tamton X-ray computed tomography CT scanner. This machine, typically used for high-resolution industrial scanning, would examine the Tamui-Hai fragments with a precision Derek Price could only have dreamed of. They were no longer looking at blurry Heidi shadows. They were creating a full, Beidi digital model of every single gear, every single tooth, every single crack. The co-leader of the project, Tony Freeth from University College London, described the moment they first saw the data. It was, he said, Christmas morning for an entire decade. The CT scanners sliced through the corrosion, revealing things that had been invisible for 2 millennia. First, they found the user manual. The X-rays revealed thousands of new Greek characters inscribed on the front and back plates of the device. It was a wall of text hidden beneath the green-blue corrosion. It was an astronomical guide, an instruction manual for the cosmos. It described the movements of the planets, the phenomenon of eclipses. The machine wasn't just a tool, it was an encyclopedia. And this text confirmed their most staggering hypothesis. The mechanism didn't just track the sun and moon, it tracked all 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This was the final, impossible piece of the puzzle. But how? How did they model the bizarre, complex, retrograde motions of the planets which appeared to stop and move backward in the sky, using only gears? The answer lay in the CT scans. The team, led by Michael Wright and Tony Freeth, uncovered a breathtakingly clever system. The Greeks didn't believe the planets orbited the sun. They believed in a geocentric model where everything orbited the Earth. To explain the backward motion, they invented a system of epicycle circles riding on top of other circles. To model this mechanically is a nightmare of engineering, and the Antikythera's creator had solved it. They had used a pin and slot mechanism. Imagine 2 gears, one stacked on top of the other, but slightly off-center. A pin on the lower gear fits into a slot on the upper gear. As the bottom gear turns at a steady rate, the pin forces the top gear to speed up and slow down. This was the exact mechanical equivalent of the Greeks' epiclic theory. They were modeling the variable motion of the moon as described by the great astronomer Hipparchus of Rhodes. In Hangin Le Haimimot, Tony Freeth's team at UCL published a paper presenting a complete A to Z conceptual recreation of the machine. They showed how all 5 planets could be modeled using a brilliant, nested system of concentric tubes and gears, all fitting within the original book-sized box. It was a masterpiece of microengineering, a hand-cranked, mechanical cosmos that was more complex than any known geared device for the next bone chum years. This was no longer a computer, it was a philosopher's guide to the galaxy. You could turn a crank, set it to any date, and the machine would tell you, where is the sun? Where is the moon? And what is its phase? Where are all 5 planets? Will there be an eclipse? And when are the next Olympic Games? It was a complete, predictive, mechanical model of their entire universe. The secret of what it was finally solved, but its solution only opened a deeper, more profound mystery. This machine was built around Mochumnamui to Mochum BC. It sank around Baimwe BC. This implies it wasn't a unique prototype. It was an existing, established technology. So, where are all the others? Why did this astonishing technology, this ability to create clockwork cosmoses, simply vanish? Why did the world have to wait until the Mourbonth century for the first cathedral clocks, which were simpler and cruder than this multi-century BC masterpiece? Why did history have to reinvent the gear? This is the Antikythera Mechanism's biggest secret. To answer this, we must first ask, who could have possibly built this? The evidence points to the giants of Greek science. The Roman orator Cicero, writing in the 9th century BC, the same time the ship sank, describes seeing 2 such spheres, or orreries. He says they were built by the legendary Archimedes of Syracuse in the Bard century BC and brought back to Rome as spoils of war by the general Marcellus. Archimedes was the Leonardo da Vinci of the ancient world, a genius who famously said, "Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I will move the world." He died in High BC, but the Antikythera mechanism is from a century later. It is most likely, then, that this machine is not the original Archimedes device, but one from the school of Archimedes. A later, more refined model based on his principles, perhaps built by the astronomer Hipparchus, who lived in Rhodes and developed the very lunar theories the machine uses. The ship itself was a Roman-era cargo vessel, a super hauler of its day, filled with plundered Greek treasures, likely on its way to Rome for a triumph or a wealthy senator's villa. This device was the iPhone of its day, a high-status, high-tech object of immense value. So why did the knowledge to build it die? There are 4 compelling theories. Theory 1. It wasn't lost. It was a secret. This theory is popular. Like Greek fire, the Byzantine superweapon, the knowledge to build this cosmos engine may have been a closely guarded state or religious secret, held by a small, hereditary guild of craftsmen. This wasn't a mass-market item. It was a divine tool, perhaps used for prophecy, navigation, or state-level astronomy. When that guild died out, or was killed in one of the many wars, the secret died with them. The knowledge was never written down. It was tradecraft. Theory 2. The wrong material. This is perhaps the most chillingly simple theory. The mechanism is made of bronze. In the ancient and medieval worlds, bronze was a strategic military asset. It was the material of swords, armor, shields, and cannons. When an army needed metal or a kingdom needed coins, the first thing they did was melt down useless old bronze statues and devices. It is highly probable that thousands of these mechanisms existed. They may have been common in universities, temples, and the homes of the rich. But ours is the only one that survived, precisely because it was lost at the bottom of the sea, where it was safe from the scrap metal collectors. We aren't looking at a unique prototype. We are looking at the last survivor. Theory 3, the Roman wrong turn. This theory is about culture. The Greeks, especially in the Hellenistic period, were obsessed with theoretical science. They loved the why. The Romans who conquered them were the greatest practical engineers in history. They built roads, aqueducts, and concrete domes that still stand. They loved the how. The Romans inherited this brilliant Greek theoretical technology, but they may not have valued it in the same way. It was a curiosity, a rich man's toy, a philosopher's plaything. It didn't help you build a bridge or win a siege. So, while Roman engineers built magnificent public works, the complex, theoretical clockwork tradition of the Greeks withered and died from lack of interest. The knowledge wasn't destroyed, it was just forgotten. Theory 4, the library burned. This is the most straightforward and perhaps most tragic explanation. The knowledge was preserved in scrolls, in workshops, and in great centers of learning like the Library of Alexandria. But ancient civilization was more fragile than we think. Through a series of cascading catastrophes, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the political chaos and civil wars of Rome, the plagues, and finally, the total collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the entire ecosystem required to build such a device was destroyed. To build the mechanism, you need more than one genius. You need a stable society. You need mines for the metal, workshops with master craftsmen capable of precision milling, and astronomers with decades of data. You need theoretical scientists to design the gear ratios, and a wealthy patron to pay for it all. It wasn't that one book was lost. The entire world of knowledge that supported it was shattered. It took humanity another bone-chum years to reclimb that same ladder. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than a piece of ancient tech. It is a ghost. It is a message in a bottle from a lost timeline, a hint of a might-have-been future. It proves that our comfortable, linear view of history, from primitive caveman to modern genius, is completely wrong. History is not a straight line. It is a fragile, complex, and often broken path. Civilizations can rise, touch brilliance, and then fall, taking their secrets with them back into the dark. The mechanism is a profound, humbling reminder that we are not the pinnacle of human ingenuity. We are simply the ones who survived. It forces us to look at the ruins of the ancient world, the Parthenon, the pyramids, and wonder, if they could build this, what else did they build? What other wonders, what other impossible technologies are still out there, waiting in the sand or at the bottom of the sea? But now, we want to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest secret the Antikythera mechanism still holds? Was it a one-of-a-kind masterpiece from a lone genius like Archimedes? Or was it a common mass-produced tool for which all others have been lost to the furnaces of history? Let us know your strongest theory in the comment section below. We read every single comment to see what mysteries you've uncovered. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. We'll see you in the next one.